United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor?
I'll second.
Oh, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have one presentation from Superintendent. Floor is yours, sir.
Can you turn this on?
Sounds like it's on.
There we go. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, City Administrator, Mr. Terry, thank you for the opportunity to come speak tonight, ostensibly about the bond. Before I do that, I would like to, first of all, apologize to this group and to you, Mr. Mayor, for my failure to steward the polling situation that transpired in our school district a little while ago. I feel badly that I did not steward that effectively. I want to tell you candidly, I knew going into the conversation what I believed this group's position would be on it, around the potential disenfranchisement nature of it, and I advocated very strongly to keep a polling site here in Elko New Market as we were consolidating in an effort to be a little more fiscally responsible with our budgeting for elections, and I failed to be successful in that persuasion. I accept the consequence of that, and I'm sorry it didn't go the way I had hoped it would go, but we're in a political process, and I have to respect the result of that, but I also want you to know that I apologize for not doing that to the best of my ability. So with that, I do want to talk about a bond referendum. Well, actually, I guess I should give anybody an opportunity to maybe say, I don't want to steal your meeting, Mr. Mayor, but if anybody would want to comment to me or tell me anything about that, I stand at your discretion.
We understand the process. It's unfortunate that the folks that are down here this far south have to go, that far north. It is what it is, and we can disagree with it, but that's what it is. Fortunately, that's.
Well, again, I always say that nothing is permanent, and I will continue to work to advocate for Credit River and Elko New Market and see what I can do better in the future. So I do want to say that to everybody in the room, candidly and genuinely.
Will there be, I'm assuming there are going to be some official signage for the referendum?
Yes, sir.
If so, could we have maybe one that we can post out front? Because I'm sure several folks are going to show up here, show up Credit River, wherever, expecting to be able to vote.
Okay?
And it'll be a redirecting sign.
I
If
will.
we can make that request, I think that'd be
And
Yes.
the same for Credit River. I'm assuming they'll have the same
Yes,
situation.
and I will make sure our communications folks get that the way you would like it. Okay.
The one other request I would make is that because the polling place has to be identified on a regular basis, that the next time that discussion comes before the board to designate for the upcoming year, that we are notified as well in advance as possible.
Agreed, and I will not steward that incorrectly ever again, and I can promise you that. All right, let me share with you the upcoming bond referendum, and the long and the short of it is, as your community grows, Lakeville grows, Credit River grows, that puts a burden on the school system. The burden that it puts on the school system is that we have to expand our facilities in order to properly provide learning environments for our kids. If you could, Tom, go to the next slide. Go ahead, one more. So this is our vision and mission for our school district, and one of the things I'd highlight in there is that we want to have safe and collaborative learning environments for our kids. Part of that is being able to provide the ideal class space and the ideal room in any of our buildings for our students. We're going to get 3,000 middle schoolers in our 27-28 school year. We have 3 middle schools, and they are not going to be able, under current configuration, to assimilate all those kids with the right space for classrooms. And then, as you can imagine, if your classroom space is getting crowded, all your common areas become an issue as well. In particular, your gymnasium facilities and your cafeteria facilities. I make it a habit to go to our schools, and I serve lunch to the kids just as a way to connect. And in our middle schools right now, Century Middle School has 94% of it is filled to 94% capacity. You are crowded anything over 85%. Crowded means you're using non-instructional spaces for instructional purposes, and you are having too many kids in your common areas. And why is that? Well, you have special education supports that are in a building. You have different types of classes like STEM classes, FACS, those kinds of music and art that you have to also carve out space for. So 85% of your gen ed instructional is a full building. So I'll show you some other data on this and what it looks like for our middle schools, if you could, Tom. So as we always do in all of our bond referendum situations, we go to the community. We use Morris Leatherman. They do scientific surveying of whatever the topic is that you want. They're well known in the state of Minnesota and been doing it for over 30 years. And in that polling, 90% of our community say that the quality of our schools is excellent or good. And 87% say the district does what is right. And I think when it comes to bonds and looking at options with bonds, it's about fiscal responsibility, and that is you don't overbuild and you don't overspend in terms of what you're asking from your community, and you ask it when you need it, not because you want to do something I guess, innovative or different. And I think Lakeville is kind of known for being fiscally responsible. So I think that all tracks. Whether it translates into successful bond is, another question, and why we do ask our voters and try to share this information with them. If you could go next. So what is exactly going on? I want to share this picture. The red is obviously Lakeville. The dark blue is here in Elko, New Market, and the light blue is Credit River. And based on our staff interaction and doing data collection, this is the picture we believe is occurring in our Lakeville area school district with these cities and what the growth pattern is projected to be. Now, over the last decade, we've seen about 17,000 new residents, and in the next 5 years, we're projected to see about another 5,000. And I know here they're building. I know you guys are permitting. In Lakeville, it's, I want to say off the charts, because it kind of is. And what this does, and as plans like this occur, what voters typically or taxpayers typically don't necessarily get from the cities is, well, that's going to impact your schools. Now, some people figure it out on their own. They understand that. Others are surprised that, well, we're taking on more kids, and so we have to expand our facilities and our capability to do that. Some of that might be a new school. Our strategy, at least in the time I've been in the school district, if you watched how we handled the elementaries, we went through a process first of changing non-instructional space into instructional space within our buildings. Then we transitioned to additions and put additions on elementary schools before we built another school, which is Highview Elementary School. That's the process we went through. And we did that because we wanted to be clear about the numbers and make sure that the net tax capacity that was going to service that debt was going to be legitimate and make sense fiscally for us, because you don't want to be over leveraged in your debt service. So we're taking that same approach here. I do not see that this school district will need to build another middle school or another high school, but we will need to do additions, and we will need to do additions in our high schools. In about 2 more years, maybe 3 years, we're going to have to deal with that problem as well. So let me just show you here, next chart. This shows what we did. We got 3 different demographers independently looking at what is going on with our birth rates and city growth within Elko, Newmarket, Credit River, and Lakeville. And this is the picture that we paint that about by 2040, I'm showing my age, I apologize, we'll be somewhere near or just around 13,000 kids. And so we have to plan for that expansion. That red line that you see running across there shows what our current capacity is in our district for the facilities that we have, and I'm referring to school facilities, at 85% fill. So you can see we have a delta there that will be growing, and it's also, our kids are going to age in, so we think, again, that this is a impact on our middle school, and I'll show you that a little more granularly here in a second, but also our high schools are going to be an issue. Next chart. This shows you what our middle school enrollment increase is going to look like over the next 5 years and why we definitely need to do something. And again, I'll just say candidly that probably in 2022-23 timeframe, we probably should have settled this problem, but it is what it is. This is, when I came back and reviewed all of this, I was like, we're going to have to do this, and we have to do it now. And that's because we have this problem of 8% increase in our middle schools. And again, I was hit with, hey, we need to put a new middle school in, but I don't see those numbers. And I think 230 million versus 139 million is a very different proposition that also services our problem long term. And I'll show you that here in the next chart. This is what we would look like in our middle schools out to 2033 if we do nothing. So our capacities will go up, in 28, 29, and they'll kind of bounce around a little bit over the out years, but all of our buildings will be beyond full. Again, if 85% is full, this is distressing. Right now, Century Middle School is at 94%, and it's a tough situation for that school right now. Next chart. This is what we're trying to create in our middle schools by putting additions into our middle school system. And the reason you see that up to north of 3,400, like 3,450, is we want to account for any variation that you can't know, and then also what's the pace of folks moving in. While we have a nice uniform chart that shows the growth, we all know that the growth doesn't necessarily follow a uniform pattern because people buy homes, economy changes, et cetera. So we want to make sure we're accounted for years to come without having to add a whole nother middle school. So I want to just share for facilities planning, we started with a facilities long-range vision that we called Facilities Vision 2030. And when I came back, we took that information, took the information my successor put together, and we continued to work on figuring out what our facility needs were, which kind of led us to where we are today. I think it was Teamworks did a very comprehensive community process with that while I was away. We also internally, as I shared, we got 3 different demographic studies and did those independently so that we could triangulate where our numbers were, because the TeamWorks numbers were, when I looked at them, I had a big red flag, and then I said, this is overstating the problem, and decided we needed to do at least 2, but I ended up being 3 independent demographer assessments so that I could validate that the numbers we were looking at had efficacy for now and into the future, and I feel very good about that. Because you're making a long-range decision, that the idea is to set a condition for the district to stabilize as it was before. The other thing we had to do is our boundary adjustments. That combined with this is the effort to try to stabilize the district for a decade. So here's if this is approved, if you would, there's some builds here, Tom. So what we want to do, obviously, if it's approved, is deal with the capacity problem. That's the first and foremost. But we're also looking at, creating the right learning environments for the next decade of time that our kids are coming through the system. So additional classrooms and gymnasiums address the capacity, but we're also doing renovations to expand the cafeterias so that there's I call it throughput. So how many kids can you get through? You have 3 lunch periods that align with your curriculum schedule. You have to get your kids through there in about a half hour's worth of time. So through the line, opportunity to sit down and eat, take a little break, and move on. Right now, in Century, where we do have the biggest problem, we have kids that are in the back of the line that maybe get 5 or 6 minutes of time to actually consume their meal. That's unacceptable, and we're trying to avoid those scenarios. But also STEM and band, choir, our visual arts and media arts, because we're going to have more kids in there. We need more space for them. Special education classrooms definitely need to be expanded. Our population in that is growing across the system. We also want to, because there's more project learning opportunities for kids, and this is becoming more the norm, we want to be able to set up our classrooms to have the right flexible learning spaces. And there's some parking scenarios where we have definite, I don't know if any of you have been around McGuire or JFK, when kids are getting picked up or let out, the whole backside of that is a real mess. By mess, I mean a safety hazard. Now, we take a lot of effort with our staff to make sure that our kids are safe, but we want to fix that problem as well. So that's what, if we're approved, that's what we'll be doing across all 3 of our middle schools, and I'll show you some charts that give you a little bit better picture of what that looks like on the ground. So this is Century Middle School. The dark blue represents additions, and the light blue are renovations or tenant improvement in order to meet those goals. So there's classrooms additions for Century, and there's also an auxiliary gym or another gym space added on to Century in order to handle the number of kids that we'll have there. And I think Century will probably continue to have the most kids, but the goal here is to get everybody back under 85%. So Century, McGuire, and Kenwood. If you go to the next chart. What we're doing at Kenwood is much more minimal. It used to be a high school, so it has the classroom space, but it needs cafeteria and gym space adjustments. And then you can kind of see in the upper left there, it looks like a, I don't know, little gravestone. It's not a gravestone, but it looks like a little thumbprint or thumb on the top there. That's an addition to the parking, because we need more space as we also have more staff in the buildings. We're going to need more space for them for parking. And then next chart shows McGuire. So McGuire has several classrooms and a lot of renovation internal to the internal classrooms. I don't know if you all ever get into McGuire Middle School, but this school was originally built in the 1950s, and the classrooms were probably state-of-the-art for that time, but they were much smaller. So we need to expand those. We do need to add classrooms in that building, as well as an auxiliary gym. So a lot going on there. And then you can see around the perimeter there the change to the parking and the the vehicle pattern that we're going to do to mitigate the challenges that we have there currently with JFK and McGuire being so close to each other and having crossing traffic patterns. Tax impact, I show three different home values here. The median for our school district is $500,000 now. So you can see the difference there. Now the financing is fixed over 20 years. As the net tax capacity goes up, the per month will go down for the bond. So this just kind of explains that, the theory of distribution. I think all of you being on a council understand how those processes work and what net tax capacity is. But essentially, as people move in and they come online with property taxes, that fix goes down. We also look at refinancing all of our debt on a regular basis. In fact, we may be refinancing one from 2019 as we speak. Our financial advisor is looking at the prospects of that. Okay. If it fails, well, we're going to have increased class sizes. I think we will have to deal with overcrowding across our system. We'll have to figure out how to maybe adjust our staffing in order to try to keep the safety and security in the buildings as best we can. And I think it's just kind of self-explanatory that when you don't have enough space and you have a lot of kids, it's just going to be a crowded facility and not necessarily ideal for our students and our staff. The ballot question asks for $139.6 million over 20 years, and that is for McGuire, for Kenwood Trail, and for Century Middle Schools, and the things that I shared with you. Voting is on May 12th, and there's early voting at the district office. That starts March 27th. There is mail-in ballots, so this election is supported by mail-in voting, and then the polling, all the 4 locations will be open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m., I think, on May 12th. So, ma'am, I'll take questions now.
Well, I just have a quick question. I understand you're at 94% right now in your middle school, but these middle schoolers are eventually going to go to the 2 high schools.
Yes.
Have you done this same approach looking at the high school to make certain that it's equipped to handle this large influx of 3,000 children coming into the high school? Or are you going to be looking in 4 or 5 years to have to do another referendum?
We're going to have to do another referendum because we are going to have to do additions. We're trying to be a little more comprehensive by looking at our high school and basing our facility adjustments on what our teaching and learning strategy is going to be for the next decade. And we are in the process of doing that now, but candidly, we are going to have to come forward in the future with a referendum. And in my view, looking at the numbers, and we'll proof them out again, I don't do a demographic study annually because that doesn't make sense, but I think in our 3rd year after the one we just had is probably prudent. It used to be every 5 years, but I don't think that's good enough. We do have an internal process that we do to confirm or deny what those numbers are. So we have numbers for next year. We will bounce our enrollments against that, and we can go backwards in time and use historical data to do a trend analysis to say, okay, predictively, we'll be at this number the next year. But we also have to bounce that against permitting. So we do an internal process of confirming or denying, but all that tells us already we're going to have to do something in our high schools. It's not telling me build another high school, it's telling me additions.
Okay. What is do you know what your cutoff is for building versus adding onto? I mean, why do you say right now it's not building a new building?
Well, a couple things. So how many kids do we build for? So our elementaries, when we started building elementaries back in the 90s, and I wasn't here, but the basis was 600 students, a 600 enrollment. When we built Highview, we used 700. So that's maybe a little bit of a shift, but for each of our middle schools and our high schools, we haven't established a number, but in my mind, it's the number that correlates with 85% fill for both of those. So we did do that math, and that's what we're going with. And so then you articulate that out to your growth and your enrollment rollover year over year, and you probably need about 1,500 more students in high school to justify a building. And we don't see that. Could that change? It would have to be a radical change that you all would like have to build, thousands of homes in a very short period of time, which you're not planning on doing right now. But we obviously would want to be looking at that, and we stay in contact with Tom and his staff about that, with Justin and his staff, and with the Credit River staff to just know and see that coming. We're developing, I told, so in our operations department, we're developing, using AI and some other things, some internal modeling capacity to really know with a high level of fidelity what the development pattern is going to be internal to the school district, so that we're more precise about that than we've ever been. So I think those are the right steps. The other thing I think we want to improve on is what's the levy picture. So we're doing that as well. Like, everybody should know what that picture is, because what gets lost in the wash is, well, the school district's growing. Yes, there's property taxes that the city has to have for infrastructure, but they don't articulate the school issue. It's up to us to do that. So I'm telling everybody, we need to do better at that from a prognostication perspective.
Perfect, thank you.
Speaking of long-term facilities.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't represent the question that a lot of our community would have, that our residents repeatedly are asked to support referendums for investment in facilities within the city of Lakeville proper.
Yep.
And while we may not have the student population to support facilities here today, what is the long-term plan related to facilities in Elko New Market? Because it's not just our population, but everybody. There's a point between here and Lakeville City proper that would also come
Yep.
to facilities here.
Well, I know the internal conversations are about building south in our district and not north in our district. I think there's room for this city council and our school board to have conversations, maybe a joint session or something, to talk about that, because I view that as the business proposition is, in my view, is not the hard conversation. It's the political conversation and the representation conversation. And I would also say I'm hopeful that, there's an election in November, and, representation on a council or on a school board says a lot, and maybe there's some effort to do that as well. I did look into whether, Credit River and Elko New Market could have reserved seats, and found out that that's not something I can influence. But you understand what I'm saying? In theory, it's like there's for sure 3 cities. Credit River used to be a township, and I know you know all that stuff. But representation in the political process, I think, is one of the challenges. But maybe a joint session or something where we're talking to each other, and that representatives are talking to each other might be helpful.
I think that might be helpful. Also, I would suggest maybe engaging stakeholders from the community in the long-term planning process. I know in the more distant past that was done, although I was the lone person from this portion of the district on that in a large room of stakeholders. And I know in this last round there was no engagement of the community in the long-range planning process. And I would just suggest in the future that maybe that's rectified.
Okay. We can talk about how to do those invitations. We do open invitations, but maybe we are not being like pointed enough about saying, make sure we reach out to these people. So I will take that to heart, and maybe you and I can work on that, on how we do that better.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay.
Kind of on that same note, I know because we have Eagle View Elementary here, which is New Prague Schools, I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of families that are in the Lakeville School District that send their kids there.
Sure.
And then they pull in for middle school back into Lakeville schools. Are those numbers like statistically significant that pooled into like the 250 in the graph you were showing tonight, or are they kind of separate?
No, we account for those that are going out, and we're aware of we consider it a problem. We want those kids to come to Lakeville, but it kind of goes back to what Tom's saying, that it's a convenience in terms of choice, right? But it's also a relationship in terms of choice. So, building an elementary school in the Elko New Market area might rectify that if that's in our future. The numbers don't say that right now, though. So what can we do differently? That's a fair and difficult question to answer. But I think that as long as our kids are going to a good school, and I think New Prague's schools are pretty good, that's most important to me anyway. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll do better.
All right, anybody here for public comment on anything that's not on the agenda?
Hey, everybody.
Jody.
Jody Lucas, Xerxes Trail, Elko. I have a two-part question. First part is, do we have a start date for all the new infrastructure that's coming? No? Water tower, water pulling anything, any new pipes or anything like that, whatever's needed to do all the expansion.
So most development, they pay for and do their infrastructure for their development.
Well, the new well and all of that we're putting in.
So you're talking about water infrastructure?
Yeah.
System infrastructure? So the city has already awarded a contract for the
Sure.
firm capacity well, which is needed, basically it's a backup well to make sure that we can provide water
Yep.
if things are down on the system. So
Sure.
the other item is we will need a water tower.
Yep.
As has been discussed in the past, the timing of that has been accelerated a little bit because of having large users and other growth on the system. But it's needed nonetheless. We're in the process of doing design and site selection on that.
Do we have final numbers on those?
We do not.
Okay.
We're still working through that process. I am not sure when that will come back to council, sometime probably within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. I don't want to get arrested, so I'm not going to say. Also, I would like to present to you at council to, let's put pause or a moratorium on if Tract brings any data centers, meta centers, or any high water users to town. Cause we still have water issues that we don't know why. I mean, I'm working a second and a third job to pay for stuff to keep my house afloat with filters and filtrations and all this. It's not what was on my grandma era bingo card. So I'd really like to have a moratorium put on that. If we could, bring that to the table. You know, it wasn't on my bingo card either to be the center of other cities' council meetings, but our name has been brought to Farmington, has been brought to Rosemount. Because Rosemount is now sending out letters to their citizens regarding their water and the poisons that could end up, and they also have a couple meta centers there. So I'd rather, and I'm not against the growth that, I'm a realtor. I love it. But, you know, we have 36 new construction homes that do not have offers on them. It's a lot for a little town of 4,000. Granted, we want to grow, but like I said, responsible growth is always good. That's all I have.
Oh, Allison is on the computer. Stand by one if you want to, it's easier.
So,
Can you hear me now?
yep, thank you, Allison.
All right, great. I couldn't let Jody talk without putting in my own words. So I'm Allison. I'm a resident of Elko New Market, and I just have a couple of suggestions. While the lawsuits pile up against 4 Minnesota cities, Meta just announced that they've been quietly buying land in 2025 for a second Rosemont data center right across the street from the first. I'm sure you guys know what's been happening in Rosemont, or I'm sorry, in Farmington. This is coming everywhere, right? So I know that the council doesn't want another community fight over water like the one we've been through before. But I also know that you can't simply refuse a lawful business use, right? So, in hopes of getting ahead of the wave of proposed data center development that's making its way across Minnesota, I have a suggestion of 3 things that we could do right now to assure that Elko New Market doesn't catch a lawsuit over data center, either from the residents or the tech giants. Zoning, when you're talking about the zoning for data centers this year, I saw that was on the 2026 list for the planning committee. We can write water impact requirements so strict that developers have to prove to us that they won't harm us, not the other way around. The other is a moratorium or even a proclamation. In February, the city of Eagan was the first in the state to place a 1-year moratorium on data center construction. Last year, White Bear Township announced a proclamation. 2 different tools. Pass a proclamation tonight stating the community's values and direct staff to prepare a moratorium ordinance for the next meeting. White Bear Township's attorney confirmed a proclamation doesn't block approval, it just states your values first. Another one is an NDA. Talking to elected officials to advance a proposal is lobbying. Lobbying should never be a secret. So I'm asking you to prohibit staff and commissioners from signing NDAs on development inquiries. I'm sure you know that both the NDA ban and the moratorium on data centers are moving in the legislature right now. But you don't have to wait to do the right thing when you know what the right thing is. So I would like you to act on these suggestions, and then I know that none of us will feel like we need to file public record request every single month just to find out what's being discussed about in our community. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Good, sir.
Noah Henry, live on Xerxes Trail. Recently had a son, and I'm wondering where the well progress is, because I'm hearing all over, we're making great progress with the well owners, we're making great progress with the well owners. We haven't been contacted, aunts and uncles haven't been contacted, so where's this progress that we speak of? Because right now, we're just sitting here and we're buying filters by the case off Amazon and buying water bottles.
And which household do you live in?
26501 Xerxes Trail.
Okay, so you live with Jody. So
Yeah.
we have contacted Jody quite a while ago. We were referred to her attorney for information.
Okay.
This isn't the only well that we're making contact on. There's a number of well owners who would express concerns that we're investigating right now. We're currently working through those. Your well situation is a little more complex because there are 3 homes working off of 1 well, and we're in the process of contacting the other well owners who are connected to the well to get information from them regarding their experiences as well. So I would anticipate that we should be circling back with you at some point, and potentially for some additional information. And given that you're here, you know, requesting what the progress is, I would assume full cooperation with any investigation that we might need to do.
I'm just wondering when I can stop buying bottled water to put in my son's sterilizer and stop having to worry about what he's drinking. Because thankfully, we don't need formula, but if we did, I mean, am I gonna have to just keep buying water and keep buying water and keep buying water till he's on solid foods? Or can I, when's the point that I can just say, yeah, go ahead, drink from the hose, it's safe. I did it as a kid, it's safe. I didn't grow up in Elko, but when he's running around the yard and he just says, I'm thirsty, can I just look at him and say, grab out of the hose? Or when I wanna wash my dogs outside, and I don't have to worry about them getting some sort of skin infection or getting sick from ingesting a bunch of water. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? For public comment? Hearing none, public comment closed. Like consent agenda, is there anything anybody wants to pull out? Consent agenda, discuss, or make a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearings are none, general business.
We have two items under general business tonight. The first item is asking the council to take a number of actions related to the CASA 86 transportation study. Renee will give the report on that.
I noticed in the packet that the memorandum reviewing this seemed to have, there was no text in it, so I just want to confirm that, is that what you saw as well?
Like cut off mid-sentence.
It looks like there's just a bunch of text missing, so I'll give a little more explanation than I normally would on this. So about a year ago, developer KJ Walk approached the city regarding a potential development of property they own adjacent to County Road 86 on the south side of the city in Beard Avenue. The property is located just south of the Boulder Heights development. City staff had concerns as the city grows whether Beard Avenue or the existing location of Beard Avenue and where it intersects County Road 86 is the appropriate long-term location for Beard Avenue. So County Road 86 is currently a two-lane rural paved road under the jurisdiction of the two counties. Beard Avenue is a gravel road under the jurisdiction of the township. Once that develops, Beard Avenue would be the city's. Just worried about how the road comes into a curve. So we approached both Scott County and Leesure County, Rice County, who agreed that this really demands further study. County Road 86 may be a major east-west arterial corridor into the future, and identifying the appropriate location and spacing for intersections on that road in the future is important. So Bolton and Mank has provided a proposal for the city and the two counties to study that corridor and assist us through that process. There's actually they've broken it into two pieces. One studying the area more near to the proposed development, and then one is a greater study that would span from County Road 27 on the west, which is Texas, all the way over to Pillsbury on the east, which is on the other side of I-35. The total cost of that study is $41,440. Both Scott and Rice counties have agreed to pay approximately $12,800 each. That would leave the city share at about $15,700, of which KJ Walk, the developer, has agreed to pay a portion of that. The result to the city's budget, city's it would impact the city budget, total amount of $12,012. So with that information, the city council is being asked to approve a cooperative agreement with Scott and Rice counties. Their boards have already approved those agreements, and I do have their signed agreements. Also to approve the cost share agreement with KJ Walk for their portion. I do also have their signed agreement. And then finally to approve the Bolton and Menk proposal for the County Highway 86 access study.
You could approve it all by one motion if you so chose.
Is there a number or anything that needs to go with it, or we just say,
So
so
move.
moved? So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I get a quick question though. Is the idea to help mitigate the risks of Beard Avenue as you know, that is a dangerous corner?
That will be one of the things that's looked at.
To expand it, or, I don't know, because it kind of goes around a wetland. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know. I'm just-
Yes, that is one of the,
Make it a safer area.
it is one of the things that Bolton and Menk will evaluate what the future alignment of County Road 86 should be. So if that curve should be softened, they're gonna establish what the right-of-way limits should be and the design through there,
They'll
or the
also,
alignment through there.
they'll also look at access and access points along that corridor as
Correct.
well.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's gonna be built or reconstructed right now, but it is a plan. So as properties develop around that, we'll preserve right-of-way accordingly. Thank you.
That takes care of items 1, 2, and 3, correct? So we move on forward with this.
Correct. So this item also Renee will handle. The council is being asked to provide feedback on the concept plan for Boulder Heights South. I should note that a representative of the developers in the room, Luke Israelson, in case there's any questions or if he has any comments.
Do you have any comments? You do the floor, to yours.
Good evening, my name is Luke Israelson, KJ Walk. I don't have any comments in particular, just I am here in case you have any questions. Been working through things with staff a little bit. We're looking forward to extending the Boulder Heights development to the south, and yeah, look forward to feedback from you guys.
I am going to give a presentation on this concept plan. It is quite lengthy. It's the similar presentation that would be given at a planning commission meeting. But because this project does involve annexation, anything, any negotiations as a result of the development this is the time to really identify any issues that the city has. So I'll just get started here. So again, the property is owned by KJ Walk. It's approximately 30 acres located immediately south of the existing Boulder Heights development. That one big hurdle in developing the property is determining that best long-range alignment for Beard Avenue, which is on the east side of the property. Again, we've questioned this. We're working with the counties on what that alignment should look like long-term. And the developer has submitted 2 concept plans, one showing Beard continuing on its existing alignment and one showing Beard Avenue realigned to the west. And KJ Walk is interested in receiving city council feedback and getting started with the portion of the development that would not be affected by any potential realignment. This slide simply shows the location of the proposed development in proximity to the current city limits. The parcels are shown in red. So this is concept plan number 1. It shows 80 single-family residential lots and an area reserved for approximately 72 apartments or townhouses. And this is shown Beard Avenue on its existing alignment. This is concept plan number 2. This plan shows 71 single-family lots in an area reserved for approximately 88 apartments or townhomes. And this shows the realignment of Beard Avenue through the development. reviewing the neighborhood conditions, you can see the almost fully developed Boulder Heights neighborhood to the north. I think there's only 10 vacant lots left in the development, and everything surrounding it is really rural agricultural or rural residential large lot, like 10-acre lots. Everything surrounding this is outside of the township, except to the, or outside of the city limits, except to the north. The city's comprehensive plan guides the north half of the property to low-density residential and the south to medium-density residential. And the area to the north has to meet 2.5 to 5 units per net acre residential units, housing units, and the south must develop at a density of 5 to 10 units per net acre. This slide shows the city's ultimate sewer service boundary for the city, shown in brown, and the proposed the 2040 growth area based on our comprehensive plan is shown in turquoise, and the location of the proposed development is shown in red. The current zoning authority for the property is Scott County and is zoned urban expansion reserve. They reserve property or preserve property for urban development. If annexed into the city, it would automatically be zoned urban reserve by the city, and then future zoning must be consistent with the city's 2040 comprehensive plan. So those future zoning designations would be R2 on the north and R3 on the south. And that is what the developer is proposing as indicated on his concept plans. This slide shows the minimum lot standards for the development based on the information contained in both concept plans. The minimum lot standards will be met for the R2 district. That's a 65-foot wide lot, about 8,125 square feet. And then for the area that would be zoned R3, they have some options to do single-family, two-family, or attached unit, up to 8 attached units. So there could be small apartment buildings or attached townhome units. Specific layouts for the multifamily area have not been submitted yet. Beard Avenue is identified as a major collector street, a city-level collector street. There is additional lot depth and landscaping requirements that will be required for any lots that back up to Beard Avenue. And then attached housing does require 30% of the total site area be landscaped and in-ground irrigation required. A landscaping plan will be required as part of any future development proposal. The city has tree preservation requirements. The site is almost entirely farmed, but there are some small tree lines along the property occupation lines. Tree inventory will be required, or a statement from a qualified professional stating that no significant trees exist on the property. This is a clip out of the city's comprehensive sanitary sewer plan. The location of the property is outlined in green on the bottom of the map. It depicts the property is in Sewer District 1S6. And the city engineer has also conducted a downstream analysis of any limiting factors in the city sewer system and determined that our downstream system can handle the sanitary flow from the proposed development. This slide, a little bit hard to see, but shows the existing sanitary sewer system. There's some green sanitary sewer lines in the Boulder Heights development to the north. Sanitary sewer is available in Oxford Lane, and the Boulder Heights development is serviced by a lift station, as well as some additional lift stations downstream. The developer will be required to stub sanitary sewer to adjacent undeveloped properties that may also flow into the system. This slide depicts the city's comprehensive water plan and depicts a 12-inch trunk water line in the purple on the east side of the property in Beard. So we will look to implement the 12-inch trunk water line running north-south through the property as it develops. This slide shows our existing water system. Water services available on the north side of the property at the south end of Oxford Lane, and then also over at the corner of Beard and Lydia. Again, that 12-inch water main must be extended north-south through the development, consistent with the 2040 water plan. And the city seeks looping of the water system through the development for redundancy. And the developer will be required to stub water to adjacent undeveloped properties. This is the stormwater map. It just kind of shows the drainage areas or watersheds. The property lies within 2 separate watersheds. The Scott WMO on the western approximate 3/4, and then the Cannon River Watershed District, approximately the east quarter of the property flows to the east. So these are the kind of 2 concept plans side by side that they depict one stormwater pond kind of centrally located on the property. We don't have any further details at this point. It's still at a concept plan level. Ponds will be dedicated to the city as an outlet, and city access to ponds must be provided for. Ponds require a 10-foot vegetative buffer and 35-foot building setbacks. A wetland delineation has not yet been completed, but is necessary as part of any future development applications. There are no FEMA floodplains on the property, and there are no DNR protected wetlands on the property. There's a DNR protected wetland to the east, on the east side of Beard Avenue. Transportation on the property butts 3 streets. Oxford Lane, existing city street that's stubbed on the north side of the property. It's 28 feet wide and a 60-foot right-of-way, and this street will be extended into the development to serve the development. And then County Highway 86 on the south, again, it's the existing 2-lane paved county road. Scott County has this road identified as a principal arterial, and we think of a principal arterial that could be your Interstate 35. So they have this potentially, a pretty major east-west corridor. Rice County's transportation plan is showing this road as a minor arterial roadway. So there's conflict between the 2 counties' comprehensive plans, and we've called that out, and they recognize that as they move forward with their next planning cycles, that may be rectified. And one of the things to note about that is County Road 86 for many years, probably as long as I've been around the New Prague and New Market area, there's always been some question of whether there could be interchange at 86 and 35 someday. So that's the reason the county Scott County really wants to preserve a greater right-of-way through there 50 or 100 years from now. That could happen. It won't happen anytime soon. And then, of course, Beard Avenue on the east is that gravel township road under the jurisdiction of the township. Improvement of the road is recommended in connection with the proposed plat. The city collected traffic volumes on this road about 6 years ago. They're very minor. We actually collected them twice. There's a couple hundred cars a day that travel this road. Again, we have it programmed as a major collector street, which we don't allow private accesses to major collector streets. The purpose of them is to carry traffic to different neighborhoods. And that's all I have there. So we have some recommendations for improvement of Beard Avenue. The existing Boulder Heights development to the north contains 125 single-family lots. And although there are 2 platted streets that access the development, Oxford Lane and Lydia Lane, only Oxford Lane is currently open to traffic. Lydia Lane is currently barricaded at Beard Avenue, and this arrangement is a result of negotiations with Newmarket Township. back in approximately 2015. At the time of the previous development, Beard Avenue is barricaded at Lydia because it's gravel currently, and the developer was required to pave approximately 6/10 of a mile of 275th Street from Oxford out to County Road 91 at that time in lieu of paving Beard Avenue. And that was really the only way to get that development done. It was just the township's requirement for annexation, and that's kind of how it ended up. So the existing Oxford Lane through the development was just designed as a local street. It's kind of acting as like a mini or a minor collector street right now because all the development from the traffic has to go there to get out of the development. But it was just designed as a local road, 28 feet wide. And we have concerns with approximately 200 additional homes using Oxford Lane to get out of the development. So staff is recommending that as a condition of the plat approval for the initial phase, that Beard Avenue be improved from 275th Street to Lydia. And that's the area on the map, on the PowerPoint shown in the yellow dashed line. And then that Lydia be opened to traffic or at Beard Avenue. So that would result in 2 ways in and out of the development. The Beard Avenue Road section could remain rural, in our opinion, with a paved surface and rural ditches between 275th and Lydia Lane. Beard Avenue south of Lydia Lane could be improved incrementally with future phases of the development. And if realignment of Beard is required, the roadway could transition to an urban section with curb and gutter in the realigned area. Just some comments. The first, I'm just going to pick out some stuff I haven't talked about already. The first local road connection to Beard should be at least an 1/8 mile north of County Road 86 to allow for potential turn lanes approaching 86. Staff recommends that, and the Planning Commission, that local road connections be provided to the property to the west. There are 2 10-acre properties to the west that have some developable area on them should they want to develop. That was one of the conditions. We did run some traffic volume projections just based on the lot count numbers provided by the developer for both concept plan 1 and 2. The development is going to basically generate about 1,300 additional cars a day. Traffic modeling is planned to be included with that larger study that's being conducted by Bolton and Mank. Sidewalks and trails, based on the city code and comprehensive plan, we would recommend or require sidewalks on one side of all local streets and a 10-foot wide bituminous trail on the west side of Beard Avenue. Related to parks, the city subdivision ordinance requires 8% of land be dedicated for parks, playgrounds, or public open space, et cetera, or cash in lieu of be dedicated to the city. If no land dedication is required, the park fee has been established at 8% of the fair market value of the land. The city's comprehensive plan does not show any park search area, so on this property or in the near vicinity. The map on the lower left, and then outlined in green, shows the location of the property, and you can see there are no park search areas. And then in addition, our comprehensive park plan states that it's recommended that all neighborhoods be serviced by a park that's within a half mile. and that was established believing that that was an acceptable walking distance, a half a mile, not having to cross any major highways or roadways. And the map on the lower right shows the 1/2 mile radius of Boulder Heights Park that's in the development to the north. So you can see the subject property is, based on the guidance in our comprehensive plan, it is in the service area of the existing park. Based on this guidance in the comprehensive plan, staff have recommended cash in lieu of park dedication. And then the Planning Commission concurred with that recommendation at their meeting on February 24th. The Parks Commission did not review this just because of scheduling. They did not review this until after the Planning Commission had reviewed it. And at their meeting on last night, they recommended land in lieu of cash. So the council is going to be asked for some direction on this, and just going to provide a little bit more information here. So there were, for the commissioners, I read through the meeting minutes, and I was not at the meeting, but talked with the staff member that was the liaison, Brandon, at that meeting, and then read, he had already completed kind of verbatim detailed meeting minutes. So for those that were in support of the land dedication, there was a heavy emphasis that they weren't necessarily looking for like a fully developed park with a playground in it, but more just open space that where, you know, a kid could throw a football or play a pickup game of soccer or something like that. And they expressed disappointment that they did not get to review the concept plan before the Planning Commission, so I'll just be upfront about that. They also recommended that if land is dedicated, that it be on the west side of the property, adjacent to potential development to the west, so that maybe it could be added to in the future. I have, on this map, I've shown the location of Boulder Heights Park on the north, outlined in green. And then I superimposed the development on an aerial photo, the proposed development. And then there's, again, these two undeveloped parcels to the west, or really, I could say three, to the west of Boulder Heights. And there's some significant grade and wetlands off to the west. So I've highlighted in yellow, with outlined in the yellow dashed line, what I think could reasonably be, you know, developed and added in this area. It calculated out to about 15 acres. And I've also included some dimensions of, or distances from the existing park down in the proposed development. So we have about 800 feet from the park to the northern boundary of the new development, and then the new development is about 1,200 feet. So I'll keep moving with the rest of my presentation, and then we can come back to any questions that we have for the city council. Annexation is required because the property is currently located in Newmarket Township, and it would be recommended that it be achieved by joint resolution for orderly annexation. That's an agreement with the town, which maintains our relationship with them. If the city council is in favor of annexation for the purposes of the development as it's been shown, we would expect a petition for annexation from the developer very soon. City staff would then work with the township regarding the terms of the annexation, and prior to annexation, staff would recommend that we enter into a pre-development agreement with the developer to identify our expectations regarding the development and Beard Avenue. In addition, then there would also be a joint powers agreement between the city and the town that will outline the transition of maintenance responsibilities related to Beard Avenue. The city engineer and public works director's comments regarding the concept plan were incorporated into the staff report. Few comments, police chief just recommended temporary cul-de-sacs at the end of dead-end streets. The fire chief did not have any comments. He did see the concept plan, no comments. And then we haven't currently solicited feedback from the building inspector, or the city attorney, or the school district. Newmarket Township is aware of this. I've distributed detailed emails. They have a liaison on our planning commission who was present during the review of the development. They have expressed no concern and seem to be supportive of the annexation under the terms that I've described. Miscellaneous items, we've recommended a neighborhood meeting prior to any plat applications. Helps things go a little smoother on our end. And then that ghost plat, our high-level concept plan for the property to the west, be developed so we can verify or determine that any road connections would be at reasonable locations to accommodate future development. So the Planning Commission reviewed this again at their meeting. I misspoke, this is not March 24th, it was February 24th. They recommended support for the property being annexed into the city based on the developer's concept plans. They recommended support for the single-family portion of the development that would not be affected by a Beard Avenue realignment be allowed to develop at this time. And they recommended that any portion that could potentially be affected by Beard Avenue realignment be delayed until that alignment is agreed upon between the counties and the city. The city council is being asked for the same feedback, being asked to provide feedback on the overall concept. Do you support annexation of the property based on the concept plans that you've been provided? Do you support immediate development of the property not affected by the road realignment? Do you concur with 30 comments and conditions identified by the Planning Commission and staff as outlined in the council memo? And then if you could provide feedback regarding the park dedication. Cash in lieu of. I can review the conditions if you want. Most of them have been outlined in the presentation or in the staff report. They were all included. I just want to point out that is one correction to condition number 7, recommendation number 17 regarding the spacing of local road connections to Beard Avenue. Corrected to say that the first local road connection to Beard Avenue should be at least 660 feet north of County Road 86. There's some leeway on other road connections on the spacing of those. And then number 25, regarding park dedication, will need to be amended based on your feedback tonight.
Can you go back to the specific questions, Renee?
Yes. I do not have, that concludes my presentation. If Luke has anything to add, you can add it here. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mayor.
The only question is, the last one for me is the land versus cash. I support land commissioner decided there's a park within that half mile. If we need another one, that's kind of where I'm at on that. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I support the.
I agree, I would take cash over land, and I approve of everything else.
I just had a question on I mean, if the southern half of the property is gonna be more densely populated, I don't know, the park thing is up in the air for me then, because they're the ones that kind of would bear the burden of having to go up to the park.
So attached housing requires, under our city code, requires that they provide 10% open space within their own development that's private recreational area. So if you have 5 acres on the south end, they'll have to provide a half an acre, or 10% of the land has to be open space for their residents, and that would be privately owned and privately maintained. Now, that could be, part of that could be satisfied by a workout room within the building, or a yoga room, or it could be outside picnic area or a outside playground. But detailed plans for that area haven't been submitted yet.
I think that would satisfy it then for me for
There's
not
not
having
an
a
apartment or
park.
anything like that in consideration, is there? Or is it just townhouses, more than likely?
The zoning only allows 8 attached units, so we don't have an exact plan for what that looks like. If it was an apartment building, it would be a very small one, probably with garages underneath, so it'd function a lot more like a townhouse than a typical apartment building, so, but yeah, we'd probably be looking at 8 attached units per building, just to try to meet the density standards.
I think then the 10% would more than likely be outdoors, so that would kind of satisfy my concerns.
Yeah.
To side with the planning commission.
Okay. Yeah, so if the southern, I don't think they could meet their density requirements by developing that southern portion with single family. I think they're gonna have to do some kind of attached housing. If it was all single family, then that open space wouldn't be required, but for any attached housing, that would be required.
Got anything you want to add, or are you?
I don't think I have anything necessarily.
Okay.
I was trying to measure out what like 2,000 feet would look like. I'm just thinking about, like, as a parent, how far do I let my kid go by themselves to get to a park?
Sure.
And it's not very far. So, I mean, it's half a mile is a long way for,
It's less than that though, isn't it? I think from the southernmost portion to the park, like to the edge of the park, is like, when I did the math in Google, it was 0.37 miles.
like, drawing things on the GIS to get 2,000
I guess on this,
feet.
is there even anything there, or is it just open space? Based on what I'm looking at right here.
They were talking just, the Parks Commission position is that it would be passive space, so there wouldn't be any facilities or anything there, it would be grass.
You're
Kinda
asking
what's-
about the existing.
Yeah, what's the existing?
So the existing one consists of a playground structure and a pavilion, which includes a picnic tables and such on that. We also have porta potty there, dog station, and the usual park things. There's a little bit of open space to the east of the pavilion. It's not big enough for like a ball field, but it wasn't intended to be. And then it's immediately adjacent to the open space of the wetland area where there's a trail around it that reasonably could be considered part of that space. Now, it's wetland, you can't play football in the middle, well, you could play football in the middle of the wetland, but normally you're not going to, so it's more the trail, the open space trail benefit, the natural feature.
Yeah, and, I mean, Tom, maybe you could give me your opinion, does this need to be decided right now, do you think? Or could just the developer be put on notice that this is still potentially an undecided issue, or would you rather give direction?
I mean,
In my
for
opinion,
what it's worth, I think I'm on the fence, but also outnumbered. So,
I think it would be fair to give the developer some direction because they're gonna move forward with annexation. And, they're gonna be making investments in construction design. I'm assuming you would probably move
just
to
the whole
preliminary
pro forma.
plat. And that's a lot of money to ask a developer to spend to say, oh, wait, you need to redesign the whole thing or redesign this whole portion of that phase of the development because we changed our mind. The other part is we also want to have a clear idea of what we're getting if we're going to be annexing the property.
Did I hear correctly that the Parks Commission, they wanted the land, but they didn't necessarily want it for a park, they just wanted it as green space anyways? And
It's,
if we're doing green space for the R3, then that kind of would take care of that green space. It's not like we would be putting a park in there, it would just be green space. Did I hear that correctly in your presentation?
that was the conversation at the meeting, that they felt there wasn't a lot of that type of space in the Boulder Heights Park because there's, there's a big wetland, trails. So that would be something that could be provided in this area. But keep in mind that anything that would be in that R3 in an apartment or townhouse area is going to be private, not open to, it would be open to the residents of that area
Right.
or the owner, but not to the general public.
Right, but that general public that is in housing is that much closer to the park. For walking distance,
Yeah.
so to speak, if you.
The other thing I would,
You're splitting which way you go.
yeah, and while I know that I wasn't there for the discussion was that it would be a place that somebody could throw a ball.
Right.
Was what I understood, was kind of the gist of it. I can tell you based on my experience, if there's an open space in the neighborhood which is flat and available, we will be requested to improve that parkland with structures, play structures or other facilities.
And
Unless it's a completely natural area.
And I neglected to note that the motion was a 3-2, so it wasn't unanimous.
My understanding is it was the philosophical debate of get land or get it was the policy discussion, and both sides represented their positions well. But yes, it was a clear split.
I'm still in favor of the cash in lieu of land.
Me as well.
I still am.
Still on the fence?
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Does matter.
But yeah, I mean, all of those things put together, it makes sense to go with cash.
Okay. Okay.
We needed to,
No,
just
we'll
say-
just,
Yeah,
I mean, I
good.
think there's support for the things that are shown on the slide here. We'll translate that into the meeting minutes, and the developer can move forward with annexation petition.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to reports. Edmund,
I have nothing specific under administration unless council has any questions for staff.
seeing none. Public Works, anything from them to relay?
Nothing
Nothing to relay?
specific, just a small note. They were doing a street repair. We had a service line that needed to be repaired, homeowner's responsibility up on Saxon Drive. So they had to excavate basically a good chunk of the front yard and the street because they had to take her all the way back to the main. It was a complicated job for the contractor. We had staff on site all day just in case because they were snaking between water service lines and as they were doing the job and water main. So they were out there to help make sure nothing got broken. If it did, to be able to turn stuff off right away so we didn't have a mess given the time of year, so.
They didn't hit the water shut off with their mower, did they?
No,
No,
no.
I did that. It's gotta be repaired. Anything from the PD?
We
Oh.
have we're in the process of interviewing candidates. We have had an influx of candidates. We interviewed a candidate today, second round, which will not be moving on, but we have 2 first-round interviews for officer candidates early next week.
Awesome. Anything from fire?
We completed our interviews for the fire officers, and you will have recommendations coming forward for consideration at the March 26th meeting. And we would be looking for oaths of office for the entire command staff then at the first meeting in April.
Sir?
Update in the packet there. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Anybody have any questions? No?
I guess the only punchline I got for you is the weather outside tonight and this weekend.
Right?
Yeah.
Glad I don't work this weekend. Oh, what do we got from community development? Or we touched on all that already?
We have.
Let's skip right past that one. I think for parks, we kind of touched on that one too.
We did. Just a side note, I was doing some quick measurements of distances, like inside the Windrose neighborhood. We were talking 1,200 square feet. Big portions of the Windrose neighborhood have a further distance to get to parks than that, with play structures, so big Windrose and little Windrose.
Okay, CCEC?
Not till next week.
Okay. Other committees and boards? Sir, anything?
We did not have an executive committee meeting. I should report that we did have an RTF, or Regional Training Facility, meeting. It was a lot of discussion about next year's budget. They're looking for confirmation of who's in and who's out. Right now, it only sounds like there are only a handful of entities that are still looking to continue to participate in the RTF, so Scott County and the cities, Jordan, Belle Plaine, and New Prague.
Everybody's going to first center.
Other people are other options.
Stealing them.
As soon as we have confirmation of the signature from the city of Lakeville on the first center agreement, we've already gotten the bill, but once we have the signed agreement, unless the council says differently, I'll be sending our official exit letter to the RTF board. And I believe what that will result in is we will be responsible for, if we do it before October, and we're trying to do it well in advance, we may not be responsible for operational budget costs next year, but we would still be responsible for debt service costs for next year. So more to come on that. I'll provide the council with an update when we get that far. And then we have scale tomorrow morning, and that will be presentation by Michael Thompson related to the assessment picture, property values, and market feedback. It's always interesting, but he'll be doing it at a county level. We'll have Michael coming to talk to us specifically about Elko New Market at our next council meeting. And then service delivery. We have a meeting that's been moved. The consultant that was hired to do the updated insurance consortium feasibility study, to have it done, the meeting was moved to later in the month. So at the end of the month, we'll have a presentation on that, so I don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. Anybody have anything from I-35?
Nothing major. We met this morning, had an update from 494-35 interchange. If anyone travels north, it will continue to be a nightmare. And then talked a little bit about bonding. Transportation isn't really high on the governor's list for allocating funds for this year, so I think as we look for the funding, more funding for the bridge, it's not looking great, but.
Did Burnsville butt in line with? Because
With
there
their
was no
three
talk
bridges?
about this other bridge that they have, and now it's starting to show up. I was just wondering if they kind of,
Tom?
But
There
in
had been
what?
plans to do the bridges.
because I know it was like 50 before us, and then Burnsville
Yep.
showed up on the radar. It's like, hey, wait a minute.
That actually was before 50, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so they're ahead of it. But that being said, for the I-35 coalition, with these other projects getting taken down, our project should be moving to a higher place and priority on the southern portion of the coalition's
Okay.
representation area, so.
discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to bring back around to what public comment brought forward and talk to you or figure out how you guys feel about a moratorium, what the staff is thinking, what our attorney is thinking, how do we have this discussion so that these people know that their voices have been heard and we're listening to them. What are our next steps? What do we do?
So,
Agree, but I don't wanna knee jerk it either.
I don't
Yeah.
wanna knee jerk it, that's why I need to know what our next steps are.
so let's first talk about what a moratorium actually is. A moratorium is not an outright forever ban on any particular land use. A moratorium is a tool that cities can enact where you're basically putting a temporary pause on a particular type of development that allows a community to be able to evaluate the zoning subdivision regulations related to that if they're making changes, so you don't have stuff rolling in as you're trying to get it done. The question is always, is there a need to actually have a moratorium in place given the particular situation? We make changes to our zoning and subdivision ordinances all the time. And I think in my time here, I think we've only put in less than a handful of moratoriums related to items. I believe that the interest at this moment in time, and it was referenced, is related to the Planning Commission's desire to, as part of their goals this year, to take a look at the definitions related to data centers. So I think maybe what we should do first is ask Renee what's going on with that, so you guys kind of have a little bit of context and what the real zoning issues might be that might come up.
Yeah, I'll tell you my opinion. So today, if somebody came into Park I-35 and said, I want to build a data center, we would consider that warehousing and distribution. It's just warehousing of data and distribution of data. That's a permitted use in the industrial zoning district, so there wouldn't be any conditional use permit required for that. However, the city council a couple years back enacted an ordinance that states any user that wants to use more than 10,000 gallons of water a day has to come to the city council for a special permit. And if that water isn't available under our current water appropriations permit, then we can deny the permit. My opinion is that we have about 75 million gallons a year available under our current water appropriations permit, because most of it's been allocated to Niagara, and we reserved 75 million gallons
Like-
for growth.
No, some of it's been allocated to Niagara. We have the rest of the community, which also uses water.
Right.
Yeah.
The additional, okay. I think we're on the same page. So today, if a data center came, so they wanted to locate, we highly likely don't have the water to give them. So I'm not particularly worried about it. That said, we did decide, we had a conversation with the Planning Commission of, should we take data centers and give them a separate definition in the zoning ordinance and treat them differently than other warehouse distribution? Treat them as their own entity and probably require a conditional use permit, or we can put some parameters or conditions on it. And that is it was a high priority for them to do that this year, so we plan on doing that this year anyways.
Yep. And to be fair, if you have a data center user that was to come in that is not a high water user, because there are technologies, more expensive ones, which is why they usually want to be a water user for cooling and et cetera. But if they were to use an alternative system which didn't require that volume of water usage, they'd go in. Although I suspect, based on the comments tonight, the concern that's in place is related to water usage, not necessarily to the nature of the use itself.
So basically, right now, what we're saying, because of the way our water appropriations permit was written when we did that, we currently would not even be able to entertain a data center coming into town.
If they were a large
If it was a
water
large water user.
Water user, okay.
Yep, but if we were to increase our appropriation permit at some time in the future, and there was sufficient capacity available, they could reasonably apply for the special, industrial use, significant industrial users permit to be able to utilize that water. In my opinion, to put a moratorium in place, quite honestly, is neutral. Because the likelihood of it happening or being able to happen is very low, if not nil, within the time frame that we would be doing this particular work. However, if the council wanted to, for the same reason, I don't know that there would be harm in putting a moratorium in place for us to be able to take a look at that particular user. The question I would have for the city attorney is, do the circumstances justify us putting a moratorium in place for what we're looking at doing?
If you're if you're looking at, studying the appropriate zoning and definition for data centers, then yes. I mean, then that could be part of, you need to have a basis for putting in a moratorium, which means you have to authorize a study of some sort. If you're doing that, then that's fine. You only get it for a year. So,
So you need to describe the work you're doing.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
I-
we're already doing the work. Because you're already working
Correct.
on something.
Which is
So
fine.
there's no real reason. And if they come in as a large water user, we don't have the water for them anyways. So right now, as we sit today, we cannot accommodate them.
Correct.
Perfect, okay.
Unless they run one of those glycol systems, like Tom was saying, it's super expensive for cooling.
Have we had any inquiries, even like a soft inquiry of anything in kind of the data center space?
Not recently. There was one we had a couple years ago, and there's a large electric transmission line that runs on the northwest side of the city. They really want to be close to that, so they were saying like, well, could we rezone that property out by Highlands to industrial? It's like, probably not. We don't support that, and that's the last we've heard from a data center.
Okay, perfect, that's all I needed to know. Unless you guys wanted to talk more about it for any reason.
I don't
The
know.
direction we're going.
I'm not a
I
fan.
only know enough to be dangerous, but now I've dove into, started reading some of the, like White Bear Township and Egan and what they did, and like this one says some data centers have begun using modified jet engines to generate power. That's alarming to me. That's something that I feel like would be environmentally concerning, but
Well, there's noise pollution.
I literally only have just begun my
Research.
down the rabbit hole adventure here, so.
Yeah, and that would be, given some of the potential, like, the nature of it might be a reason why we would want to potentially consider making it a conditional use permit. But to the mayor's point, if they were doing something like that, if they exceeded the noise limits, they would be in violation of our city ordinance and MPCA rules. So, there's things in place already for some of those items. But, I mean, Andrea can walk us through the process, but the process of putting a moratorium in place takes a little bit of time and resources, but it's not a giant hurdle to overcome. It takes a little bit of time and there's some process.
There's no clear process. It's basically adopt an ordinance, do it at your next meeting, and it's.
And you can take that moratorium off at any time.
You
'cause
can.
We talked about this, what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we had talked at one time about doing a moratorium.
Yeah, we've talked at different times about moratoriums. Staff will always recommend that you set it for as long as you think you might need it, and you can always make it shorter. I think the effort to put one in place is relatively low for the potential of also low, somebody coming in. The one place where you might run into it is if there was a proposal for a data center which was using a glycol system and not water, where if it's all about the water side of it, you would potentially block that project, but you could also pull the moratorium back at that time.
You know, I've done some research on data centers just because of everything that's going on north of us. There are other concerns other than just water that we as a city should look at and make certain, so.
I'm
maybe-
surprised they haven't showed up yet.
Maybe we want to bring this as a topic of conversation in a future meeting. Or if we don't wanna make a knee-jerk reaction, maybe this is something we need to discuss at more length about doing a moratorium until everybody is well aware of what all of the other factors are that can happen to an environment with a data center, not just water. The pollution, I mean, there's a long list of different things that I've read, and I'm just doing the old Google search, right? So,
Down the rabbit hole.
down the rabbit hole, and I don't even know if what I'm reading is correct. So maybe it would be a good educational thing for us to understand and know.
I would suggest that if you feel that type of research at this point is necessary, to put the moratorium in place, because that's the whole purpose for moratoriums, is to give you that breathing space to do research on those types of things, without a degree of, you've got adequate time and resources to do it.
Shall we put one in place? I mean, it is,
We have to have definitions first, is that what I heard? Okay. Or no?
like I said, I don't want
We
to
don't.
knee-jerk nothing. I want to be able to look at it from a 30,000-foot view before we start throwing paperwork at stuff. I don't know, maybe a little bit of research from staff, just,
Well, one thing that we could do, it would not be ready for the 26th, but we could schedule for consideration a moratorium on it, and as part of that, we could provide a level of background information about the topic and what we would be looking at in the coming year. And then you can decide to do nothing with the moratorium. You could decide to adopt the moratorium that night, or you could decide to hold additional discussion or direct additional information be provided at that point.
Do you as staff have time to do that right now?
that's another question.
No.
Not for the 26th.
No, but like,
just
let's
in
say-
general, I'm telling you, no, in March and April, likely not. I'm currently drafting an email to our planning consultant to see if they would have time to work on it.
Okay.
So what would you guys like to do?
I would like to move forward with it, but I don't think it's like crazy urgent, that I think it's okay if we wait till May or June. Just
That's
'cause
reasonable.
I-
Yeah,
We
that's
haven't
reasonable.
had any inquiries, and I just,
Right, it's just,
And currently, right now, I mean,
yeah, that's reasonable.
yeah,
Doesn't need to be
I'm
done
okay
tomorrow. It's-
till
like I said, I don't wanna
May,
knee-jerk it.
June, if we wanna do that.
I don't want to just start throwing paper at stuff, with an unknown. I think this can be,
I'd rather be well educated and,
this can be drawn out a little bit.
Okay,
okay,
all right.
thank you.
Anything else? No?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, adjourned.